Hey SpaceCats, I'm Dr. Maggie Lowe. Welcome back to my channel. As you can see, this week's video is going to be a little bit different from my usual videos, and this is because I'm talking about a topic that is super close to my heart. If you've been keeping up with space news, then you might know that the European Space Agency have finished their first round of astronaut selection. They had over 23,000 applicants and they've whittled it down to just over 1,300. You might have guessed from the title that unfortunately I did not make it through to the next round. So that was super heartbreaking for me.
That was super heartbreaking for me.
And it's taken me a long time to even come to terms with it. But this is why I'm making the video, to kind of get this off my chest and talk about it now. So yeah, 1,391 applicants were selected to move on through the selection process of the astronaut selection. This is quite a lot more than their planned 1,000, which actually I was pretty surprised at how many they actually took in. I do know several people who made it to the next round, but equally I know many more that didn't make it through. So the next step, applicants would be invited to Germany to complete some psychometric tests. And I was really surprised that ESA, before they had finished reviewing all of the applicants, had started inviting people to the next round, because I really don't think it would be fair if they knew that they were only going to take 1,000. I know they took more than 1,000, but if they had a set limit of 1,000, really they should have looked through everyone before they decided which applicants got to go to that next round. Anyway, I was hearing that people were getting invited to Germany, and I was still hoping that I would be called on, and it was just that they hadn't got to my application yet. I submitted my application on the very last day, and I kind of do regret doing so, but I couldn't have got it in any quicker than that. But of course, like all the people that got through, I'm sure they were super amazing. Everyone that I know that had applied had met all the requirements needed and went well above that. Some people spoke even 7 languages fluently and still didn't make it. 7 languages. And obviously I have discussed this with people who haven't made it through to the next round as well, and kind of like them, I was very confused at the time because I thought I met all the criteria, and this is not just something that I decided to do in like the last year or something, or I just heard about the application and applied. This was something that I've been kind of working towards since at least 6th form. I knew I wanted to be an astronaut, and I've always been waiting for the date. I knew previously that astronauts were selected every 10 years or so, and I knew I couldn't even apply until I was at least 27 years old. So I was pretty much over half of my life, I'd been waiting to reach the age where I was able to apply to be an astronaut, and just trying to keep on top of everything that would make me a viable candidate.
We're going to train earlier, harder, and longer.
I think the takeaway note from this, however, is that there are so many qualified people out there, and they will have done so many things. I mean, I'm sure there would have been hundreds, if not thousands, of astrophysicists just like me who apply. And what makes me stand out? There would have been hundreds of thousands of engineers and other types of scientists. So even if we all fit the criteria, it's an insanely competitive position, right? The last time that this happened in Europe was over 12 years ago. So these chances don't come often. One surprising thing I will say though is that everyone that I know that worked for ESA and applied actually didn't get the role, which is kind of weird to me, because you'd think that like they already meet the criteria to being an ESA employee. And ESA have quite strict criteria for that. They have really high standards for that. And yet these people were not selected to go to the next round of the astronaut selections. There was a theory that was going around that ESA had perhaps maxed out the possible number of people that they could send to Germany for their tryouts, for their psychometric tests. And that's when they just kind of cut everyone else after that. And so it would be interesting to see like a distribution of those selected to the next round and the time that they submitted their applications, because if this was the case, then you would see that. But obviously this is not going to be something that they will publish. But one thing that I'm hoping that they will publish is the distribution of countries, of people's citizenships that got through to the next round, because we know that the deadline was extended for Lithuania. So Lithuanians would have applied at the very end tail of the application window. And so if they did cut people out based on not having time to read everyone, then you will see a big drop in Lithuanians making it through to that first round. At the end of the day though, there was just so many people that applied. Every single one of them had to fill in a questionnaire. Every single one of them had to submit a CV. My CV was 2 pages long, and everyone had to create this bespoke motivation letter. And so CV and motivation letter alone, that's already at least 3 pages. And they had over 23,000 applicants. So that's around 70,000 pages of documents to look through. And you can imagine how difficult that must be. So obviously there's going to be a fair amount of luck involved in getting to the next stage.
And lucky for you, so lucky.
I mean, constantly I had people buggering me, asking me like, how have you got any news about the astronaut selection? How's the astronaut training going? Even like past students and even people that I'd never met before were asking me these kind of questions.
Any news, Colonel?
And that just kind of got me very nervous. That I wasn't hearing anything and other people were. At the same time, I did have a lot of people that were actually happy for me that I didn't get through.
Hooray! Woohoo!
Well, maybe they appreciate it, but they just don't think it's that amazing of a job. Or maybe they were just saying it to make me feel happier. Quite often I'll get questioned about why I would even want to become an astronaut. Because as we know, it's going to take over a year, almost 2 years, just to go through the selection process before you're selected to be an astronaut. And then you have several years of training, maybe 6 years or more of training before you even get to go to space.
How long?
So that's what, 8 years of your life gone before you even go to space. And some people who obviously they genuinely care about me, and that's why they say these kind of things, is why don't you just kind of settle down and get married and have kids instead? Why do you want to waste 8 years of your life just to go to space, maybe just once in your lifetime? As we know, many astronauts, they only ever fly once. And I think part of that reason is why I know that that was my very last shot at becoming an ESA astronaut. And other space agencies only accept citizens of their, that are involved in their space agency. So for example, NASA only take US citizens. So previously when ESA selected astronauts as well, largely this was dependent on how much money the member state had donated. So if you donate more money, you are more likely to get an astronaut selected from your country to go to space. I know that this was my one and only shot at the opportunity because I am 31 years old. ESA selections happen only every 10 plus years. I know they want to do it more frequently, but realistically, I don't think that they will do it more frequently. So in 10 years time, I will be 41. 2 years for selection, and then another 6 years training. I'll be almost 50 before I fly. And realistically, that's when your health will start to decline more, and things in life just get more complicated and in the way that can stop you from doing what you want. And it's so unfair that in the US, you do see astronauts that apply several times before they get before they finally make it through to the astronaut selection. Jose Hernandez was rejected 11 times before he made it, and Clayton Anderson was rejected 14 times. So these people in the US, and also strangely all men, they just apply over and over again. NASA selections happen every 2 to 3 years, so they have the opportunity to do that. But we really don't. Our applications occur every 10 years, and the process to make it to an astronaut is long and hard and difficult, and even more so for women. So it's heartbreaking, but it's the end.
Game over.
When I got the email to say that I was rejected, I just kind of reread it over and over and over again so many times, and I didn't even kind of feel anything. I didn't really feel anything until several hours later, just before I went to bed, and I text my best friend that I didn't get selected. She had literally been texting me pretty much every day asking, have you got any news on the selection? And then I just turned off my phone and burst into tears and cried myself to sleep. I just felt kind of empty, and my sense of purpose was just gone, because I don't know, every day I get up and exercise, and what motivates me to do that is that I know on the ISS we'll be training several hours a day, and I wanted to get myself in the best shape to go to space. And I always ate healthily for those same reasons, and I would practice languages, Russian and Mandarin, just on the small hope that having a small edge, I know these are things that you would learn during the training process of an astronaut, but having a small edge, small advantage of these things, I guess having the dream of being an astronaut was what motivated me to make a lot of the decisions that I did in life. And as that dream faded, it didn't even fade, it just kind of got cut off. It really broke me. It took me a long time before I even picked up my exercise regime again. I haven't looked at Russian since finding out. I don't think I will try again, because I don't think it's a good use of my time anymore. But yeah, it kind of was like a big existential crisis for me. And it wasn't something that I was comfortable in talking about with anyone. And it was really difficult that people kept asking me about it, and even now still is asking me about it. I guess a large part of me just didn't want to come to terms with it, and just kind of wanted to forget it ever happened. I still have very little idea of why I didn't get through. We weren't given any feedback in the slightest, and fair enough, we had 23,000 applicants. That's a lot of replies to write back to. The next round is cognitive and technical tests, and these involve psychological testing followed by psychological interviews afterwards. In the 2008 astronaut selection, the psychological tests were the most cutthroat, and most people fail these, and to be honest, I don't think I would have passed the psychological tests. Just knowing my character in general. The psychological tests that happened on the 2008 astronaut selection was so cutthroat. I think 1,000 people made it through then, and only 47 made it out the other end, because it's just so difficult. Having the mindset of an astronaut is just so hard, and to be honest, I don't think it's something that I would have got through anyway. I also heard that in the initial questionnaire, there might have been some trick questions there that they used to catch people out. And obviously, like, astronauts need to be able to pay attention at all times. They need to focus. So if you can't even answer a simple questionnaire correctly, even if they do it to test you out. So for example, you might be asked a lot of questions where you expect your answers to be no all the time, but they might switch the question around at one point and make you answer a yes instead of a no. And if you didn't catch that, then automatically that would suggest that you weren't focused enough for such an important questionnaire. Unfortunately for me, I haven't been able to look back on my questionnaire. It's not accessible in the application process. So yeah, I might have messed up there. Another thing is that the ex-ESA head of space medicine, he said that some of the panelists previously would even go through, for example, social media accounts. So don't think that they don't look at your social media account and judge psychologically whether or not you're a good candidate there. They'll also be looking for things like dishonesty and whether or not you're serious or any extreme views.
I'll hit them.
So what to do from here? Well, ESA don't just recruit astronauts, and space is still a huge passion of mine, even though like the pandemic and kind of the rejection from the ESA astronaut program has pushed me right into the ground and really made me question, do I really want to do astronomy and space anymore? But there is so much more to space travel than just the astronauts. There are like the engineers, there are all the scientists and researchers behind it, there are the communication teams, there are business administration. There are so many things that you can get involved with within the European Space Agency that is helping humans get to the moon and get to Mars. These kind of roles are typically advertised through their careers website, and I've heard that there are going to be loads more recruitment in the coming years as the current ESA staff are aging into their retirement, and that's going to allow the new generation in. And of course, there is the rise of private space companies. We're seeing Elon Musk go into space and take people on 3-day trips. We're seeing space tourism just go to the edge of the atmosphere for a day trip, a couple of minutes up in the sky. There are like the anti-gravity, zero gravity flights that I would love to try out one day. I think they would be really cool. I would love to go on an analog mission where they kind of simulate the effects of being in space on a long-term mission to, for example, Mars, because I think that would really push like psychologically and physically your limits, and see if I really do have what it takes to be an astronaut. I would love to go up one day privately, and I don't think that's too far away either. But if I were to go up privately, I have a lot of saving to do because currently my postdoc salary does not pay me enough. So I'm really hoping that YouTube kicks off and then it can pay for my bills, get me to space. Get me to space, YouTube. But yeah, astronaut dreams officially crushed.
I am dead inside.
I think people are super keen to find out more about what people's applications looked like. So hopefully, if Lionel agrees, one of our next videos will be going through each other's applications and trying to figure out exactly why we didn't get through. But that's all for this week's video. I hope you liked it. I hope I didn't bore you too much about like emotional rubbish about my real life. Anyways, love you guys so much. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave me a like, share and subscribe.